Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining in for the webinar for the OWGP Innovation Grant. So I can see there's still some people joining in the lobby, but we're running a couple of minutes behind schedule, so I'll just get kicked off. Thanks for joining in the session today. I say this is, we're going to be running through the latest innovation grants call with the Offshore Wind Growth Partnership. So just a bit of an agenda and some housekeeping for the session. So I'll be presenting on the innovation grant. I've also got representatives from our industry champions. I've got Andrew Foster from Equinor, and then also James Lightfoot from SSE Renewables. So they'll be presenting about halfway through the session, as they'll be giving some insights from an industry perspective. I've also got my colleague Tom Piper, who's on the call. He'll be assisting me, just taking any of the questions that come through. So please, if you do have any questions, put them in the chat. I think there's a Q&A function, and we'll set some time aside at the end of the call and try and get through as many of them as possible. There'll also be we'll kind of save the copy of the slides and have those available on our website after the call. So they'll be available if any of those who you've got colleagues who maybe weren't able to join, or if you'd like to get hold of information, we can pass that on. So yeah, moving right on. So again, yeah, thanks for joining. So a bit of background from the Offshore Wind Growth Partnership for those who maybe aren't aware of who we are. So OWGP is a flagship UK supply chain growth organisation. So we're looking at making sure we've got a dedicated supply chain for the offshore wind sector, and we are trying to make sure that we've got that capacity to scale up and grow within offshore wind within the UK. So we are an independent organisation. We're not for profit. So as you might see from either our email addresses or from on our website and things, we are delivered by ORE Catapult, but we are a separate entity. So we have our own private funding, and we're able to, and that's why we've got our slight differentiation with OWGP. The mission that we have is we're obviously looking to accelerate the growth of offshore wind within the UK, and we're looking at that with very targeted investments, and looking at trying to support companies that are going through. Those can be new organisations to offshore wind, but also those that are looking to scale up and transition and transform in the offshore wind sector. The support that we offer, we have two streams of support. So first is through our business transformation. That's where we can offer some bespoke business advice and tailored support services to companies looking to engage in the sector. And then secondly, we have our grant funding programs, and that's obviously what we're looking at today, and that's helping to deliver and increase capacity and funding new projects that are coming through in delivery for offshore wind. So in terms of the programs that we have, I won't go into each of these individually, as it's a fairly short session we've got today. So as I mentioned, we have these two strands of support that we have for OWGP. So we've got our business transformation and our grant funding. Now, grant funding, we scale from our innovation grant programs, which is what we'll be focusing on today, all the way up to manufacturing support programs. And for those that might have seen recently, we had our larger industrial growth fund with the IGF. The innovation grant is obviously going to be the focus for the webinar, as that's the call that we've got live and open at the minute. These are targeted projects that deliver new innovative solutions, technologies and products for the sector. We're looking for those projects that have already had that slight proof of concept and are looking to develop into commercialization to the point where they're able to be adopted by the sector afterwards. So with the funding we have for that, it's between 25,000 and up to 200,000 funding available. This works on a match funding basis. That fits into the wider scheme of our grant funding program. So we do also have our development funding program and our manufacturing facility support program. We have more details on those programs on our website, and if you have any other questions about them, you can contact myself or other members of the team. And those are kind of for sort of slightly larger scaled funding opportunities. A bit about just the kind of impact and what we're looking to do within the sector. So obviously with the goal for OWGP OWGP is trying to make sure we've got a fit for purpose supply chain. So we're looking to invest in projects which are going to bring new capacity and capability to the offshore wind sector, and that are really going to transform it to make sure we're reaching these targets for deployment. As you can see, we've have got quite a reach in support and funding for OWGP. So we are working across the UK, and we're trying to use look at a range of company sizes and looking at sort of those key cluster areas. The companies that we've supported have grown by, we've seen over 1,600 jobs that have been increased since the OWGP has been established in 2019, 347 million in turnover and 293 in exports. So we're really trying to look to see how we can transform the sector. It's also important to know that we work within the wider support landscape for offshore wind. So we obviously have quite close collaborations and quite fit in with other support mechanisms such as Catapult, the Crown Estates, Scottish Enterprise, Innovate UK. So we do fit into that wider scheme of support. We're obviously very targeted with this call for the innovative solutions that are coming through and getting into that next phase of development. So what the funding call we have today is we're looking at the innovation grant. So as I said, this is for very targeted towards the offshore wind sector and looking at key challenges. The way that we run the innovation grants is we have these on targeted scopes. Now we do quite a lot of active engagement to try and determine what are the priorities for offshore wind moving forward and how can we address those to make sure that we've got an adequate supply chain that's in place so we don't have bottlenecks going into the future. So we do quite a lot of collaboration with the industry to understand what are the challenges that they're facing. We are aligned with the industrial growth plan. So the OWGP is the delivery body for the IGP, and as part of that, we identify what are the innovation priority areas for the sector moving forward. So the call itself. So this is now live. The call is open until Friday the 20th of March at 5 p.m. As I said previously, the funding that's available for this is between £25,000 and £200,000. We work this on a match funding basis. So eligible companies would need to provide at least 50% match funding for the projects, and this can be an in-kind or match contribution. The focus for this call, so what we're looking to address as being the technologies are, we have two strands or two buckets for what are eligible projects. The first is industrial foundations and substructures, and the second is going to be substations and electrical design. So we're looking for projects that fit into one of these categories. Now the list of areas I've highlighted there on the slides as a kind of subsectors, that's not an exhaustive list. So what we have included is the likes of foundations. Now that could include deep water, floating or lightweight or low cost, new solutions that are kind of coming through. It does include moorings and anchorings, and then we're also looking at some things around maybe that's advanced materials for floating substructures, also the investigation and life extension piece, and the installation, inspection and repair. So it's quite targeted in that sphere, but we have there's that scope for kind of wider reach. On the second strand, it's more focused on the substations and electrical design components. So we've highlighted that being the offshore substations, the kind of fit out and installation, as well as the HV equipment, and then that electrical system design and SCADA. As you'll see from the on the bottom right there on the page, so we do have industry champions sponsoring the call. So we have delighted to announce that we've got Equinor and SSE Renewables participating this year. So we've engaged with them prior to the call, and they're feeding in. It's important to note that there's no sort of financial commitment or contribution directly from Equinor SSE for this call. They've been brought in to kind of champion and support the call and give their industry insight and backing. What I'll go into next is just a brief on the sort of eligibility for the call. So At the end of the session, I'll run through the application process itself. But this is just to give an outline in terms of what's required for the call going through. So to be eligible to apply for funding, you must be a UK registered company, and we want to see that you've got at least 12 months of financial history that are coming through. That just shows that it's you've got that enough track record and backing going into the call. This is for a dedicated project, so this isn't for any business as usual activity. It needs to be a distinct project with its own separate focus for the funding, and it needs to show an intent to be developed within the offshore wind. So we understand there's quite a lot of work that's come in from oil and gas, aerospace, defence, general maritime. But we're looking for the end case of this project is going to be focused directly for the offshore wind sector. One of the eligibilities is around, obviously we have repeat applicants that have come through, that's fine. However, you'll be ineligible to apply if you've received funding from OWGP in the last 12 months. Understand that there are funding calls that are currently going live that some of you may have already applied to. That's fine. We're kind of working the assumption that if you have a funding application that's currently live, you're still able to apply. You'll just need to outline that in your application to show if you've got any other live funding coming through. We do have a maximum of 3 or more funding awards, so that's the kind of total you can get through OWGP. And within the application itself, we're looking to make sure that you're showing a clear determination to grow your organisation and how it's going to lead to an increase in jobs, turnover, exports, and IP. So those are the 4 KPI metrics that we're looking for the call to try and make sure that we're seeing a real impact for the project that's going through. Additionally, it needs to be clear how this project perhaps could not take place without OWGP funding. So we want to show that there's the real value for money that's taking place. With regards to the scope for the call, so this will obviously be targeting if we're looking at putting investment to develop new equipment, facilities for the investment priority areas. It could also be new technologies, products, services, or solutions. But again, it needs to be clearly aligned to one of the 2 scope areas that we've outlined for the call, and making sure it's addressing a key innovation priority area. If there's any other activities that will grow the company, that leads to new jobs, turnover, export, IP, that must be shown within the application. And the type of technologies we're looking to, as I mentioned previously, is that there needs to be at least an initial proof of concept, so that we can show that it is near to market and ready for commercialization. It should be that at the end of support with OWGP, that is the next step in its development, to looking to trying to secure that commercial contracts. Hopefully that gives a good outline in terms of what the eligibility and scope of the call is. Obviously, I'll come back to that in a bit more detail towards the end, just to run through the application process itself and what to expect. As I mentioned, we have delighted to have Equinor and SSE Renewables as our industry champions for this funding call. So just to give a bit of a background in terms of what's the role of an industry champion, why have they been brought on board? So they've allowed to provide some insight in terms of what are the innovation priorities for the sector, and helping us determine what should be in and out of the scope for the call. We provide them, they get sort of first access or first sighting to solutions. So we extend an invitation to our industry champions to attend the project kickoff meetings and the project closeouts. That provides them an opportunity to engage with the supported companies, and also to, at the end of the projects, to see the end of a successful project and what are the outcomes, and have those discussions around the next phase of development, the next stage of its life cycle. So it provides them good access to see these new innovative projects that are coming through. We do get their insight into steer of what are maybe some projects of interest, or what are technologies that are high on their priority list, and provides us a meaningful insight into engagement with the UK supply chain in the sector. Obviously, we can get them engaged in our promotional material. It's great to have them attending the webinar today, and again, it's just to kind of show that we've got that industry backing for the sector and for these targeted areas. So I've done a bit of a run through there just in terms of what is the background to OWGP, you know, who we are, and the brief on the call itself. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to hand over to our industry champions. They've got a few slides to run through, just focusing on the call. So first up, we've got Andrew Foster from Equinor, and he's the technology project manager. So Andrew, over to yourself.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, firstly, just want to say thanks for inviting us to be part of this. Is something that's quite close to my heart because I've come from a research background myself. So innovation is something I've always been strong and supporting. So yeah, thanks for that. Basically, just give a quick intro then to who I am, who you're listening to. So I'm Andrew Foster. As Tom said, I'm a technical project manager in Equinor, and I'm in charge of all of the engineering and project management for 2 of our early phase projects. I've been working in technical and project management roles for around 15 years, primarily in the offshore construction, oil and gas, and offshore wind sectors. Please, could you hit the next slide, Tom? This slide shows where Equinor is present in offshore wind in the UK. So we have floating sites up in Scotland, Highwind Scotland, and we've recently won a seabed lease in Celtic Sea, which will be 1.5 gigawatts of floating offshore wind. We also have Dogger Bank projects currently in construction, A, B, and C, and Dogger Bank D coming up through consent at the moment. We have existing wind farms, Sheringham Shoal and Dudgeon, and then there are extension projects for those 2 as well. And then we have also the O&M facilities in Port of Tyne and Great Yarmouth. Please, could you hit the next slide? Here I wanted to focus on floating offshore wind because that's where we see a lot of the need for innovation. The success story of fixed bottom could be translated into the floating market, but only really with innovation and industrialization. And so we need to systematically reduce LCO across the board. So the projects, DevEx, CapEx, OpEx, and AEPs are all really important, and CapEx is a huge driver, and innovation is necessary. A significant portion of the CapEx sits in the substructures, and then for floating offshore wind, and particularly in shallow water, the mooring lines and mooring protection for those lines are again a significant portion of the CapEx. Anchors, again, particularly in shallow and hard bedrock conditions, again, very expensive. Dynamic cables and auxiliaries. And then lastly here I have port integration and heavy lift logistics. So out down in the Celtic Sea, for example, the tidal ranges are quite significant, probably some of the largest in the world. And so integrating turbines onto floaters at the port is challenging, and we need just to solve that issue. So yeah, as I mentioned, the benefit to the UK economy from fixed bottom offshore wind has been vast, and it is a huge opportunity for floating as well. And to unlock that opportunity, yeah, we need to, on the right hand side, I have some of these innovation areas where we must reduce material intensity, simplify installation. Whenever you do anything offshore, it's incredibly expensive, so every hour matters offshore. So any innovation to save hours actually saves a lot of money. Enable serial fabrication. That one's obviously a key one. Improve reliability in the design life, so we can optimize the operational expenses of the projects. And then another one which often gets overlooked is the contingency that projects need to add on for unknowns and unknown unknowns. So being able to validate technologies allows the projects to lower their contingencies and then lower the cost of the project as well. Could you get the next slide, please, Tom? Here I've highlighted kind of a few main areas of the priority technologies that we've seen to unlock Celtic Sea deployment. So the Crown Estate have leased 4.5 gigawatts of offshore floating wind in the Celtic Sea, and they have ambitions to release another 12 gigawatts of floating offshore wind in the Celtic Sea. So this region in particular has a lot of opportunity for the UK and the UK supply chain and the economy. But in order to unlock the technology, what we're seeing there are some challenges, and we do need a new technology to get them off the ground. So particularly anchors in the shallow bedrock conditions. Unfortunately, in the Celtic Sea, the kind of cheaper suction power anchors are not really feasible, and so we're looking at potentially drilled and grouted anchors. They're currently at quite a low TRL level, so there's an innovation opportunity there, but also other competing technologies to drilled and grouted anchors as well for those sites that could save significant money for the projects in the industry. Installation methods are again super key. I think that's actually a big part of the cost is the installation themselves. So again, every hour matters offshore. So yeah, innovation there is really key. Mooring lines in shallow water. So some of the sites are actually quite shallow for floating. You could also do jackets in some of these sites, and so it's difficult to actually get floating to work. And you have mooring lines that frequently touch the seabed quite a lot. So innovation is needed in protection for those mooring lines. That would also save quite a bit of money for those projects and the industry down there. So yeah, anchors and mooring are kind of not just components; they define installation time, vessel strategy, and the risk profile. So yeah, these are the really key area for what we are seeing is required in the industry. Lastly, then substructure innovation. Substructure capex for floating is significant. It's a huge portion. So again, even small optimizations here save massive amounts of money, and so things like reducing steel tonnage through smart design features, optimizations in fabrication, or optimizations in the design and the concept. For example, TLPs or hybrid concepts that are slowly coming up to TRL levels at the moment will be really key, particularly in the shallow water sites where I've noted some of these other challenges. The modular fabrication for serial production also very key. And then I mentioned about the integrated quayside assembly strategies, which is around the integrating turbines onto floaters at the site. So very challenging to do this in high tidal variation ranges where you have kind of 10-meter tidal fluctuations. So yeah, massive variances. I see a comment come in. What do I mean by shallow water? So shallow water for floating is where you're pushing the limits of floating. So like between 60 and kind of 80-meter water depths is called classified shallow for floating. So yeah, thanks for asking that question. It's a good clarification. So yeah, I guess it could be classed as deep water for fixed and shallow for floating. So yeah, I got 2 minutes left, I believe, Tom. So I can quickly go through the next slide. Here are some local opportunities that we've seen are possible in the Celtic Sea supply chain. I've just listed a few down here for the different kind of technology areas. So if you did go to substructures, so it could be possible to actually fabricate the substructures down in the region. So there's opportunity there. The drivers will be industrialized fabrication, and focus areas are kind of a cost, yard capabilities, and what investments are needed in the yards, but also investments in the port infrastructure as well. In terms of like electrical systems, infrastructure, the cables, cable protection systems. So yeah, storage and logistics in the region. So some of the key drivers here are what technology types, but also the focus areas will be the kind of schedule impacts, the design, and then also new designs for subsea substructures. This is a massive cost saving if subsea structures can get off the ground. Something that's been on Equinor's radar for a while. Conscious of time, so I'll probably stop there, Tom, and pass back to you.
Great, thank you, Andrew. No, that was really useful to get those insights. It's always good to hear from the kind of developer side what are some of the focus areas and technology of interest. I noted that you're talking about around the optimization of even in the concept and design stage for foundations is a kind of really area of concern, but then also things like having alternative solutions for anchoring for that kind of hard grounder sites. So there's a real range in there as well. So that was really interesting. Thanks for providing that insight. So that's obviously heard there from one of our industry champions. So I'm now going to pass over to James. James Lightfoot from SSE Renewables. So James is a senior manager working in the innovation and technology space. So I'll hand over to yourself, James.
Thank you very much. So morning all. So yeah, my name's James. I work for SSE Renewables, and I look after our innovation and technology across all of our generation and storage technologies. So that's onshore wind, offshore wind, hydro and storage. And it's also across all our geographies. So we've got our primary markets in the UK and Ireland. We're also developing and constructing and operating now in Southern Europe. So yeah, lots going on. If we flip to the next slide, please. And again, sorry. There we go. So I thought I'd kind of give a bit of context of the role we see of innovation in offshore wind and some of the examples of where we had to do a lot of work in the past on innovation. So first, I think, as just referenced, so Doggerbank, which SSE is working in a partnership with Equinor on that project. So we're building that. So that's the world's largest offshore wind farm. So there's been a significant amount of innovation and R&D and a lot of work on into ensuring we can deliver, the world's largest wind farm at pace. And I think we finished one of the most recent campaigns of turbine installation very, very recently. So turbines are going up really rapidly. So there's been a huge amount of work done to be able to do that and then deliver a lot of that clean energy back into the grid in the UK. We've done a lot of work in terms of deeper water. I think again, reference from Equinor. And also we operate Seagreen, which I believe is still the world's deepest fixed bottom offshore wind farm. And there's a nice photo on the right hand side. So that's where we've pushed into deep waters off the coast of Scotland, and we've deployed jackets to go down to there. So again, a huge amount of work that's gone on to do the installation, the integration with the turbine, and also the ongoing operations of those jackets versus traditional monopile. So we are also developing Offshore, which is a 3.6 gigawatt Scotland wind project, and there's a huge amount of innovation that's been done and will need to be done to further de-risk and kind of commercialise and industrialise floating offshore. We're currently probably slightly more focused on fixed bottom compared to Equinor, but still definitely half an eye on the development of that project as we start into the 2030s. Further driving sustainability into O&M is really important for us to meet a lot of our commitments, and we have done a lot and we'll do a lot more in terms of how we decarbonise operations and maintenance over a kind of 25 to 30 year period, and also promote a lot of the circular practices that are needed to be kind of reliable custodians of huge amounts of assets in the North Sea. There's a huge need for innovation when it comes to decommissioning. So our oldest offshore asset has still got plenty of life left in it, but it's probably halfway through its life, which is Greater Gabbard in England. and that will require a lot of novel technologies to safely and sustainably decommission that wind farm. And there's a huge amount of work going on between all the operators and the likes of Crown Estate and DESNZ to understand how we might start to decommission some of our offshore assets as they approach the end of their lives in the next decade or so. And finally, particularly now with non-price factors in the UK and a lot of other markets we operate in, there's a big push on in terms of coexistence with nature. We did a project a while ago with Microsoft and Avanade on to develop Puffin AI for Beatrice, which is another one of our Scottish offshore wind farms. And really, there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and we're getting a lot of pressure in terms of understanding seabird behaviour. And other than seabird, there's a huge amount of coexistence with the natural environment and local organisms we've got to do as we develop and operate and then decommission the wind farms. So huge role for innovation in everything we do, from development, construction, operations and decom. Flip to the next slide, please. So first of all, I'll cover off some of the challenges and opportunities we see with foundations and substructures. So first of all, the advanced assembly technologies are really interesting to develop for us, particularly around about capex reduction, reduction of embodied CO2 in large tubular structures, particularly things like monopiles and towers. We've done quite a bit of work in electron beam welding. We've deployed at Dogger Bank, and we're continuing to do that. So anything we can kind of speed up and take cost out of the fabrication of these massive structures, and also move away from quite energy intensive submerged arc welding is really important for us. And as I said, an active area we're doing work with the supply chain at the moment. Secondly, on a kind of similar theme, so domestically produced low carbon steel, which can then go into the plates to produce the large tubular structures. And there's, again, a huge amount of work done by third parties in terms of oil and gas decommissioning and how we can kind of look to promote circularity into industries. And so I'm really interested to see how we can deploy more kind of homegrown recycled steel in our monopiles and towers. Sea green is a really nice example, but again, there's huge amounts of seabed that's further out into the North Sea, and so fixed foundations for deeper water is something we're very interested in. I think, as Equinor mentioned as well, that kind of awkward bit between kind of fixed and floating, hitting those in a capex friendly manner is going to be really important. Offshore well facilities, so for the men and women not on that picture that are climbing up a scary ladder, they have to go out and service the wind farms and the turbines. So retrofitting welfare facilities and turbines is something we've looked at and working on the supply chains about further. Climate control for TPs before we install the turbines on top is something that's quite topical at the moment as we get some issues with moisture. We have interest in terms of bolted connections between dissimilar metals. Finally, on the coast of nature point of view, low noise piling technologies and the kind of commercialization of several of those is of importance for us, particularly on a North Sea basin projects. Click onto the last slide, please. Finally, so substations and electrical design. So HVDC grids, particularly to support far from shore offshore wind. And there's some really interesting information and use cases on how we work with the supply chain on Dogger Bank. But again, there's huge amounts of innovation that could be done to take cost out of that process and de-risk a lot of the far from shore offshore wind that we do. Maximum cable temperatures to resolve thermal bottlenecks. Feels fairly niche, but it's an area that we're working with quite a lot of operators in challenging some of those temperature ratings. And then also on the cable side, so high voltage and inter-array cable terminations, so getting the design of that improved and making them more reliable. Cable failures are very expensive to repair and very disruptive to operations, and so making them a bit more fit and forget would be really interesting for us. And then in-service cable condition monitoring and also cable protection systems, again across all offshore wind farms, will be really interesting to delve into further. On the substation side, digitization and automated inspection, again, super interesting. And finally, sustainable design. So there's been a big move to SF6 free switchgear. I think from what I understand, there are kind of certain kV specs that still are not SF6 free or moving towards that, but kind of driving SF6 out of our supply chain will be incredible. and then also looking at low impact materials and alternative cooling systems to again kind of decarbonise offshore wind and the embodied CO2 in our projects. And that's me. So thank you very much, and I'll hand you back to Tom.
Great, thank you for that, James. Again, yeah, that was really really insightful and good to see. There's sometimes some overlap in areas that are of concern and looking into, but there's also some differentiators there as well. So, likes of maybe looking at the fixed foundations in deep water, it's maybe something that's common across the two. But it was interesting that you kind of identify some projects on the slight environmental sides with kind of like low noise piling technologies, and then even just some things that we've been looking at in the past with around condition monitoring pieces and things as well. So a real range of technologies that are kind of identified. But no, that was really useful. So thanks for going through those slides. So for the next piece of the session, what I'll do is give an outline in terms of the application process itself for the innovation grant, a bit of a run through of what to expect and what we're looking for from applicants. So the innovation grant is completed via an online application form. So we use the submittable system. So your application can be completed through the submittable portal. The funding that we've got available for this pot, so for this call, we've got a £1 million pot. And as I said previously, this is for grants of between £25,000 and £200,000. So we're expecting it to be still a fairly competitive process, just with the funds that we have available. So to apply for this, going through for those who haven't used our new submittable system, you're able to access the application form, the application on our VR website. So if you go into the OWGP website, there'll then be our support opportunities, and then you can then find all of our funding calls. So within the innovation grant itself, there will be a scope and guidance document. This provides a full breakdown on the eligibility criteria, the scope of the call, a breakdown of the application questions themselves, and the general terms and conditions that are associated with that. So that's really useful to run through before starting your application to get an insight in terms of what's going to be asked going through. On the website itself, there will also be a direct link to the submittable portal. So as you'll see there'll be a button that says Innovation Funding Programme Apply. Once you go through that, it will take you to a landing page, which you can see on the right-hand side. And this is where you can set up your submittable account. So you need to create an account with an email and passwords. The benefit of submittable is that you can have other colleagues collaborate on it. So if you have others that are feeding into the team, they can continue into the application. However, we're looking for just one application per company that's coming through. One important note is that you'll see there is an option to download an Excel workbook. Now there'll be a link to that on the initial landing page, and again within the wider notes on submittable before starting the application. It's important that you download a copy of this link, as it will give you an Excel workbook template, as this needs to be completed for one of the sections of the call. There is a very brief eligibility form, and that's just to make sure that you are eligible to go through to the funding. That will determine whether you're eligible straight away, and then if successful, then you can go through and complete the main application form. The application form itself consists of 9 sections with up to 41 questions, and that will help to, this will be used for OWGP to determine the eligibility of the project and whether that's something that can be supported going ahead. So the evaluation criteria of how this is broken down. So you will see there are 2 sections which aren't assessed. So at the beginning, there's company details. That's just so we can get a background information on your company, the sector, size, turnover, location, those sorts of things. Those aren't assessed. And again, at the end, there is tick boxes for confirming confidentiality and T's and C's. So those don't influence the score of the project itself. What we're looking for in terms of the input, so we're looking at the company background and market traction. what is your background in offshore wind, and if you don't have any, how are you planning to move into offshore wind, or how your skills transferable into it. It needs to align with a clear challenge and market opportunity. So how is the product or service you're producing, how is it a differentiator? How is it different to other technologies out there? Is there a clear market that it's going towards? What is that market opportunity? Have you done the analysis that's looking in that? How is it going to be addressing that point? Obviously, we'll want to make sure it's got an alignment with the scope. So we need to outline, how does it clearly align with one of the priority areas that we focused on. There's then the chance that we looking to upload a project delivery workbook, so a project management plan. So this is, as I mentioned before, the Excel worksheet, and this is an opportunity to break down, what are the clear deliverables of the project, how is it going to be managed, what are the finances and the claim procedures. This helps to show what's going to be achieved. So we need to have a clear understanding of there's going to be a clear deliverable and outcome at the end of the project that is going to be implemented in some way. So that needs to be completed as part of the project. We're then also looking to see what the ambitions for growth of the company. How is this project going to provide value for money? Could it go ahead without OWGP support? And then the wider impact and additionality. So how is it going to allow your organisation to increase jobs, turnover, export and IP in offshore wind? Or is it going to provide any other additionality that might benefit your organisation? And then lastly, as I said there, was the confidentiality. So that's how it runs through. We will the applications will be assessed internally by the OWGP team, and we also use independent external assessors who will go through and validate and assess the selection. We will then review the applications, shortlist them, and then ultimately the final decision will go via our OWGP board, who will come back and say about whether they are happy with the final decision and going forward. Finally, one I've got is just a bit of some key dates and timings, so they understand. So we are, obviously the call is live, so we opened this the 27th of January, and it will open until Friday the 20th of March at 5 p.m. As I say, this is all done via our online system, so you'll have time to start an application, save, come back, and continue onwards. We're looking to have the final award decision around the 11th of May, with hopefully being able to notify applicants whether they've been successful or not around that time. And then we're looking for projects to be starting in around the 1st of June, time for kicking off. I should note that for the projects themselves, we're looking at them to have a duration of, I think it's between 9 and 16 months. So keeping that in mind when putting in your applications, and for the start date of when you think will be going through. You are able to bring in project partners if you're looking to collaborate on the innovation project itself. Also, what we're looking for is that the lead applicant, that those are submitting via submittable, they'll be the ones that are receipt of funding. So they'll be how the funding is drawn down to. So if we are having a collaboration, that's who the funding would be awarded to. I've put down some just my contact details there. So if there are, we'll obviously try and answer some questions that have been brought up. I see there's been a few that have been put through, but if there's any that aren't answered during the session, or if you've got any other questions on OWGP in general, please feel free to let me know. What I should say is that obviously we've kind of run through some of the eligibility and the timings. If it's it's found out that maybe some of these timings don't quite work out for you for the project, or actually it doesn't quite fit into the scope of what you're looking to develop, we do have other funding opportunities coming up. So we'll be having our next development grant likely kind of early summer, and we'll have other opportunities towards later in the year as well. So there are other opportunities there if this one doesn't quite seem to fit in with your project. So I know that we've got a few minutes left on the session, and I know there's been some questions coming through, so I'll do my best to try and answer those that Tom hasn't already been answering away in the chat. So
yeah, I'll raise a couple for you, Tom.
Yep.
Perhaps the first one to pick up is around from Stephen. are there any demonstration projects and new techniques could be shown on to reduce costs? So maybe you want to just touch on your pilot for your tech demo, and I don't know if Andrew or James have any comments on that either.
So with the technology demonstration, so obviously those projects could be supported through the call. What we would need though is a clear an agreement in place with whether that's a developer, asset owner, operator that you're doing a demonstration with as part of the application, so that we know this is going to be going ahead. Technology demonstration is something that we're looking to try and support outside of this as well with the no WGP, although it is at fairly early stages. So I think for this I would suggest it's eligible for innovation grant funding. However, we would need to have a concrete agreement in place, or you need to show that you have an agreement in place with an operator, developer, or asset owner. So we know that the project is going to go ahead, and there is options within the application process to submit supporting documents. So that could be contracts, letters of interest, that sort of thing, and engagement pieces.
Thanks, Tom. James, Andrew, do you have anything to sort of quick comment out with this funding call, or are you happy Tom's covered that off?
Well, happy, thank you.
Good. Next question is around, and Tom, you might just want to comment whether it's in scope or not, because I know we have funded similar things through underfunding calls. Is there any demand for new technologies to better manage coexistence with existing users of the sea? I think it probably falls out with the scope of this particular call.
Perhaps, yeah. It sounds like it doesn't quite fit in. Is that more on the kind of environmental impacts?
Such as fishing was the example.
Yeah, so I'd say it probably doesn't quite fit in with this scope. We have a focus on that in the past. We did a call a couple of years ago, a few calls ago, which was on decarbonisation for the offshore wind practices. Again, as I say, if it doesn't quite fit into scope with this, there is the opportunity that it could link into a future development grant. Because those ones are open scope. I will say, however, that because they're open scope, they're quite competitive. However, it doesn't, just from that brief, I don't think it quite fits in with the scope for this call.
Okay, thanks, Tom. Another one, another scope clarification, I think, with regards to the digitalisation and automated inspection of substations. Is this focused on the topsides and electrical systems, or are the foundations and subsea inspections also in focus here?
We haven't explicitly focused on one area for that for the inspection piece, so it could fall into that latter there where it is the other. I guess we provided that, although it's quite targeted on the two sections of foundations and substructures, electrical design, and substations, there is that slight openness to what projects can come through. So if you're able to demonstrate within the call itself that it does align, that you understand it to align with one of those innovation priority areas, then that's fine. You obviously just need to make that case in the project itself. So I think it does, I think that belief for that one would fall into the scope for the project.
Question here, can the business or IP background be from another country if the new tech is being developed in the UK during this project?
Yes, so we have had companies that have either set up a base in the UK or recently moved across, or have done projects in other markets. That's fine. Obviously, what we're looking to try and understand is that how is the benefit from this project going to be realised within the UK? So if that's being developed here, so that it's for the IP, is it then going to allow opportunities for turnover or new jobs within the UK? Then that would be looking at. But if it's been trialled in other environments and previously ahead of this, then that's fine.
Okay. I'm not sure we'll might need to answer this one offline, but I'll ask anyway. There are numerous concepts for structures substructure design that currently exists for floating wind at various TRLs. Is there a preference within the industry that the supply chain can focus on? I'm not sure. That's one for you, Tom. I'm not sure, James and Andrew, you want to make any comment there, or we'll pick up the answers to that one offline once we've sort of digested it. Might be a better option.
Yeah, I don't think I'll be able to provide something like that at the moment. I don't know, not to put you on the spot or anything, Andrew or James, if this is something that you've looked into, just with the concepts for substructure designs.
Maybe I can add a comment. For us, what we're considering, we consider everything really. There's no kind of subject that's off the table. Everything's on the table really. If it moves up the TRL levels and can demonstrate risk reduction and cost improvements, that's something that we look at. I think the issue really with that is coming up through the TRL levels is the risk on certain areas. So it's not just the construction of or fabrication of the substructures, also the operations and maintenance of them later on. So some of the solutions need to obviously factor in the full life cycle cost of the substructure. But so yeah, in short, nothing is off the table. So all of them get considered.
Great, thanks for that, Andrew. James, do you have anything else to add to that, or?
No, I think the main thing, there's a huge raft of different designs out there, and I suppose some kind of convergence needs to be done. And then, to what Andrew said, sort of cost out and local jobs to do it. I think for us, we're probably less, nearer term, we're a lot more interested in the fixed wind. So I suppose it would be interesting to look at floater kind of design, but I think for us over the next few years, we're a lot more focused on fixed bottom.
Okay, thank you. No, that was helpful. Thanks.
Thanks all. Maybe one I can pick up, but how is close to commercialization defined for the purposes of the application? I mean, obviously that is linked to higher TRL levels, but if you take a look at the application questions, you tend to find at OWGP, we tend to look at sort of market traction and plans to gain customers and that sort of thing. So I think the best advice is to take a look at the questions there, but it's really about how much interest are you getting in whatever the product solution is that you're hoping to develop through this grant. Tom, anything to add to that?
Yeah, and I think I'd seen there was a comment around there's a target TRL level. And so, again, for clarification, within OWGP, that we don't set TRL levels for projects we support. We are more focused on that commercialization piece. So within the application process, there's opportunities to say, as Tom mentioned, around have you got any traction to date? Have you done a market analysis, an understanding of the landscape? So there's opportunities to upload any supporting evidence there to show, we understand this is the route to market for us. This is how we're going to be implemented. If you've had any early discussions for it being adopted, whether it's letters of interest, and those can be provided as well. So we want to make sure that at the end of the project, it's not just going to be shelved as that was a nice project, but now we need to focus on something else. Want to make sure that there's going to be a direct use case for the end of this. So that's why we haven't set a TRL level, because it should be that there has been some proof of concept, and then we want to develop it further.
Perfect. I think probably at that point, we can pick up any other questions in the chat over the next 30 minutes or so, or if you have any other questions, please reach out to Tom over the coming days.
Yeah, that would be great. So I guess just to wrap up, thanks for joining in. Hopefully that provided some good information for the call. As a reminder, it's open until Friday the 20th of March. So please make sure to have applications submitted by then. I want to give another thanks to industry champions, Equinor and SSE Renewables. So thanks to Andrew and to James for joining in the call and providing their insights. It was really useful as always. But otherwise, thank you for joining, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.